Okay, so here is really the question. I was thinking about this the other day. I know that we've known each other for a really long time, obviously, but when you went to go start Lumen, like trying to figure out how to start a team and just even to reach out to me, even though you'd known me for a long time, like what were your thought processes being like, this is my company, I need to figure this out. How do I start this team?
So I think twofold. One, it first started with values,
Hmm.
because that is my primary. When I focus on hiring somebody, I always say I can teach them skills. We can learn some new skills together, but it's really hard to change someone's values, if not impossible. So, like grounding number one. Grounding number two was really a needs assessment. Where's
Hmm.
my gaps, right? What do I have not as great that I can hire someone that's way better than me at something to
Hmm.
complement and then create a more dynamic team approach. And so you were my first hire at Lumen, and I knew I needed someone that was organized and someone that could just take and just run with things. And I also needed someone that I knew had the same values of the work and how we treat people and how we want to be treated and that piece. And so that was an easy kind of quick thing to say, here's our gap. And I think every hire we've made since then have
Hmm.
still been based on those two things. One, value alignment, number one, and two, where's our gap and where do we need someone who is excelling at something that maybe we have a base for, but they're going to be so much better, which all just continues to elevate our team higher and higher and higher and the content and the delivery of what we can produce for our clients.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then what I think is kind of interesting to think about is when it was just us, we didn't have values written down, right, as an organization because we'd known each other for a long time. Like
Mhm.
I knew that we were on the same page and that like I was going to give you what I had and we were going to have a good working relationship and not take advantage of each other, but both put everything we have into it, right? But then we started to grow and get more people, and we knew that about them, but we also started to realize we might need to write some stuff down here.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't even think, I think maybe we made one hire, Stephanie, before we really wrote it
Yeah.
down. And I think that was really important. And I think I see this in a lot of organizations that we work with, especially new ones, is that the founder starts and the culture and the values are just organic. They're organic because that's just how they live, and that's the kind of they're hiring people that align with those values they have.
Yeah.
But what we see in organizations, if they don't really solidify them and document them, that when that leader leaves, those
Mhm.
values can get a little shaky because they weren't they were kind of a connective tissue, but they weren't really strongly connected. And so we saw the same thing. Like, not that we saw it in the hires we were making, but we saw it in the value of we really got to write down what's in here and what's in here so that we make sure anybody coming in understands probably the most of anything. These are the expectations and our agreement of how we operate in our core with our values.
And I know that there are internal values, but I also know that like we exude them. And so others know that about us. And so it's more like at this point, it is Lumen and not just our internal thoughts, teams, what might be in your head, because it is on paper and it doesn't matter who comes in, who comes out. People
Mhm.
know who we are because that's how we act, how we interact, how we treat others.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our clients, if we ask our clients, I think they would, they might not name all of our values, but
Right.
I'm highly confident they would name that value of that we are going to give you. Our goal is your impact, right? And
Mhm.
that like we're going to give, we're not going to just like look at every hour and like, oh no, you're out of hours. We're going to keep giving. At the same time, we're not going to let you take advantage of us. So it's that value of like we want to be a partner with you. And I don't think there's a single client that we work with that wouldn't be able to name that about
Yeah,
us. Probably, and I would say a number of our other values too. They would be able to name that about us because it's how we live and work
abs-
with them day to day.
absolutely. And so just thinking through the evolution of kind of how our team has grown, what I also like to sometimes consider is like, okay, then we built these, values, wrote them down, talked about them. We got intentional about talking about those values as we did hiring. Um, But then the handbook, right? The expectations of like what the day to day looked like developed after that, still in a short period. Like we're not talking about a long time in the development of our organization, but as more people came in, all shared values, but how we approach each of like the daily life things, I think was an interesting, not conundrum, but like, oh, maybe we have to have something to put this down on paper.
Well, and I think as you grow, it's like we kind of had an agreement, you and I, like, okay, here's how we're gonna do vacation, and here's what,
Right.
it didn't need to be as structured. But as we got bigger and you hire people with different styles and different, that can be very stressful to some, right? Like it
Mhm.
wasn't stressful to us, but it could be stressful. And so we thought, it makes sense to get some of this down on paper. So the biggest issue is that we're all in an agreement on this. And so
Right.
because where frustration usually comes is when we have a disconnect of that agreement, right? And so putting that down on paper, but I think the other thing is, and you did this really well, is we didn't just sit down, you and I, and wrote it down. We really had the team at that time really invest in, like, what is that agreement? Like, what do we want it to be? Because if it needs to be us collaboratively and individually committing to it, not
Mhm.
just us kind of mandating it, because then we're just doing all the work, right? And so it was, I think that process of building and wouldn't say our handbook is like this incredibly
Handbook, handbook.
depth everything, right?
Yeah.
We left a lot of room for meeting people where they need to be met, but at least we gave it that framework. So it helped answer those questions of like, when I need to order supplies, what do I do? When I need to take time off, what do I do? So it created less angst for folks that really need that structure.
Yeah. And I would say like we knew what the sandbox needed to be, right? For like the overall expectations. Like there were parameters, but then
Mhm.
yeah, asking like, is this going to work? Is this going to be able to meet, your needs the way you're going to show up to this? Like what within here can we shift? But knowing where our boundaries were in the sandbox to say like, this is what we know we have to do as the organization we are, the clients that we have, the work that we do. And within there, let's work together to find that space where we can all live our daily lives and be part of this in a way where we're meeting those agreements.
Yeah. And one of our values, right? Our value is that we're taking care of self.
Hmm.
And that's on the same level as our service to our clients. They're
Yeah.
not at different levels, right? And so we got to find that balance. And I think that doing that work around that expectation of the work is that your health and well-being is as important as our work with our clients. And we want to work with you to find that balance. And I always say the balance is not a perfect, I always think about it as a pendulum. It's not that perfect center. You're going to swing a little left and a little right at times. Maybe you need a little more for yourself at times because just stuff is heavy or whatever. Maybe your client needs a little more work in your swing. That's fine. That's a normal swing. What we don't want is a big, huge pendulum swing. And that's what we try to do also with our handbook and our values is to
Yeah.
really try to help maintain that nice little flow of ebb and flow to call balance.